Hi everyone. I've got Chocolate with me tonight because he's hanging around. It's like he's almost saying, hey, put me on TV. They used to sort of run downstairs to play. And now Fluffy has just run in. And depending upon what his mood is tonight, I may just end up picking him up at some time. But right now he's on the floor. And as so many of you write me, we're always looking to see one of the cat's tails coming up in the camera lens. So the last time that I was here live with Chocolate and with Fluffy, it was for Wednesday, October 2nd at my live stream. And that was just before I left for San Diego on Friday, October 4th to join the UFO cruise for 10 wonderful days and nights. And I just got back to Albuquerque on Sunday night, October 13th. And remember, I started off my October 2nd broadcast with Fluffy and Chocolate in my arms before I put them down to run around. And behind the scenes, Fluffy often jumps up on my office desk between the monitors and the computers that Brad Stoddard operates. And Brad took this photo. It's adorable Fluffy. He thinks he runs the world, maybe because he was the smallest kitten in the Himalayan litter that I went to visit 2 years ago in the fall of 2017. And that is when I was trying to end my deep sadness over the death of Simba in 2016. It was last October 2018, a year ago. So many Octobers involved in these stories that I first told you about my Himalayan cat Simba being put to sleep in the veterinarian's office. And then the next night he woke me up looking young and alive inside it was a glowing oval portal. It was right there in front of me above my bed. And that's why many of you wondered if it was Simba yet again returning last October 3rd, 2018, as that white foggy substance that came through my office window behind me, rapidly moving up to the top shelf of my bookcase and disappearing. Interestingly, a lot of you have said, Linda, was there a specific book that it disappeared into? The interesting thing is, if we could see the top of my bookshelf right now, you would see that there are no books on the top shelf where this came in, lighted it up, and then seemed to go straight up and disappear. It was that Earthfiles broadcast a year ago that will always be one of my favorites. And that's why we replayed it last week while I was speaking for the UFO cruise. Now, here is the guy I have in my lap now. This is Fluffy's brother, Chocolate. I'm letting him down now, so when we come back from this particular scene, he won't be in my legs, but he will be back. I'm telling you, these cats now, I think, are loving the lights. Well, this photo shows how Chocolate often takes Fluffy's place on my desk, because these are two brothers. They love each other. They are rarely apart. But as Fluffy thinks he runs the world, the truth is that his brother, Chocolate, is the one behind the scenes who is actually running the world. And this is a good example where Fluffy will be there and Chocolate will do something and to make Fluffy jump down, and then Chocolate will jump back up in his place. And while I'm gone, my dear brother, Jim Moulton, he comes over and he takes really good care of them when I travel, like on this cruise. And I'm explaining all of this because a lot of people ask me what happens to Chocolate and Fluffy when you go on all of these trips. Now, I would like to give you a few glimpses of what happened. This was really, truly a fun trip. Beginning with my first dinner in San Diego on the Pacific Ocean with my beloved granddaughter, Hannah Elizabeth Mead, leaning against her dad, John Mead, across the table from her mom, Laura, who is my daughter. And during the cruise, we celebrated Hannah's 5th birthday. But the first thrill came when we went to the famous La Jolla Beach, where hundreds of seals hang out sunning, barking, and sleeping, because that's one place on Earth where humans protect them, and where my granddaughter Hannah at first felt comfortable enough to walk up close to a seal. Then Laura and I took Hannah closer to another seal to show her the seals are our friends. And then Hannah had the courage by herself again to walk up closer to a group of seals sunning themselves in the late afternoon sun at the La Jolla Seal Beach. Truly, one of the most wonderful places for humans and fellow Earth creatures to hang out together on this planet. Here is another great place for humans to be close to fellow Earth creatures, the San Diego Safari Park. It's one of the greatest places I've ever been, and here Hannah, Laura, John, and I were able to feed and pet kangaroos and wallabies. Their hair is much softer than you would think because it looks stiff, but it's not. The safari park has one of the most beautiful and fast-running merry-go-rounds we've ever been on. Hannah wanted to fly on the ostrich, and I got on the beautiful hummingbird beside her. Early the next morning, our UFO cruise ship, the Holland America Line's beautiful Amsterdam, glided into the San Diego harbor to pick up a group of about 200 who signed up for the 2019 UFO cruise organized by Susan Shumsky and her Divine Travels company. I was there to do 3 presentations about military whistleblowers, the existential threat of artificial intelligence, and childhood out-of-body travel, plus panels about the American secret space program and how the disclosure and government military confirmation of the truth that we are not alone in this universe might unfold perhaps in the next year or 2. Hannah and her dad went swimming in one of the many pools on the Amsterdam ship. This one was on the 9th floor to the back, close to the amazing food and drink service, morning, noon, and night, where some of us hung out for long talks about UFOs, ETs, animal mutilations, crop circles, government cover-ups, new physics discoveries about our Milky Way galaxy's central black hole, and the profound question, is this really a holographic universe projected from another dimension by intelligences unknown? And if so, what are we organic sentient beings doing in this universe? And then there was the fun of drinking a tall, cold pina colada under an increasingly hot sun as we moved on the Pacific waters further and further south toward the equator, stopping first at the odd juxtaposition of lots of boats in marinas surrounded by the dry, desert-like hills of Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. In the intense heat, we stopped at a restaurant in the boat marina for cold drinks and really great food. We were introduced to spicy poblano and mole chocolate-flavored lunch on the outdoor veranda while men played guitars. And by twilight, we were back on the open rear deck of the Amsterdam cruise ship, grateful for the cool breeze and a sky about to fill with stars. But the next day, we avoided getting off at Mazatlan because of the intense heat. Instead, we played Scrabble, and cooled off in the pool. And as the Oosterdam pulled away from Mazatlan at the end of the day, the water in the back of the cruise ship turned to this beautiful sea green, almost as if anticipating that our next port of call would be the flower-filled, lush, green Puerto Vallarta, where we would have the extraordinary privilege to swim with dolphins. Hannah had no fear. She jumped into the pool immediately, and the skilled water park staff guided one of the beautiful dolphins in the saltwater pool over to Hannah. And she did everything they told her to do, first extending her hand up in the air for the dolphin to rise up to her hand. And then Hannah was asked to kiss the dolphin, who leaned into her without hesitation. She placed her lips on his smiling face. And then the dolphin kissed Hannah on her left cheek. Laura, my daughter and Hannah's mom, also got a kiss from the dolphin. Next, the park's dolphin handler signaled to the dolphins with a whistle to swim to the center of the pool, and then he asked Laura to swim there too, in order to be pushed on the bottoms of her feet by two dolphins across the pool. As she came toward us, she rose higher and higher, almost standing on the water, because the dolphins were so strong and fast against her feet. But she loved it so much, she turned around, went back to the center of the pool, and was pulled across the water by the strong dolphin flippers. Next, Laura's husband, John Meade, was surprised by the strength that he felt as the dolphins pushed on his feet across the pool. And here is a beautiful photograph taken by the park aquarium staff as John was pulled across the pool by the strong dolphin flippers. And when I had my playtime with the dolphins, I was overcome with a feeling of kindness from them. Even their eyes seemed to have the expression of kind wisdom that we sometimes see in fellow human eyes. And not only did they high-five each of us with one of their flippers, they seemed to be joyous about clasping human hands to their flipper hands. Kissing and leaving them was such sweet sorrow. Since last week's rebroadcast of the white fog that came into my office a year ago behind me, Peggy today sent out an informal poll about spiritual energy based on a 2013 YouGov poll that reported 45% of Americans believe in ghosts. Our poll asked, what do you believe about the following statements? And we now have our own percentages to report about your answers tonight. This sentence: soul energy survives death, recycles, and can interact with matter. 88% of you agreed with that statement. Second, soul energy recycles, but cannot interact with the matter realm. 8% of you agree with that statement. After death, there is nothing, no consciousness, no interaction. 4% of you agree with that statement. Now, I have received an email from a viewer who replied to our poll and wrote, "Hi, Linda. I took part in your informal poll about spiritual energy. That is a topic that I have given attention to and have read materials concerning this my entire life. My father and I would sit at the back of his house on weekend afternoons and discuss these exact topics for decades before his passing. I am 65 years old now, and I have a passion for research and introspective thought, thinking outside the box. These that follow are my sincere thoughts. After a lifetime of making mistakes, believing I was doing the right thing, having successes, and sometimes being just plain selfish and experiencing the consequences. I posted these 2 comments to you as Nelson Armour. Thank you for all you do to push back the horizon of fear and ignorance with light and understanding and research. I know personally that requires courage and a stalwart spirit. Great blessings to you. And now I'm going to read what he wrote after his 65 years of revolving around the sun. Perhaps we volunteer to live life in this matter world temporarily as a desire to grow spiritually. The greater part of our soul remains maybe in a heaven, while a portion of our self, our soul, lives here in a state of amnesia, a requirement needed to operate in ignorance, to make mistakes here, to learn from them, to do the right things here in a state where we learned from previous cycles. When we return, we are reintegrated as a whole soul being with this last and latest matter experience infused into our total spiritual self. Our amnesia lifted, and we reevaluate how far have we progressed. Imagine, as an analogy, how when we sleep, we dream walk sometimes, and we have experiences with others in our sleep state. The greater part of our soul is still in the body, and a lesser part in the dream walking state. I have observed that God's nature is a repeat of the same pattern from macro to micro as a kind of crude analogy, and yet one that I can grasp. I believe as we spiritually evolve through recycling souls, we reach a higher plane toward the One with a capital O. At those levels, we can possibly interact with matter once achieving wisdom. Otherwise, the matter realm would be in utter chaos as lower developed spiritual entities try to enforce their will in the matter realm. On the opposite scale, perhaps evil spiritual entities have the ability to interact with the matter realm and may be blocked by the higher spiritual entities, and thus there would be constant fierce war that we do not see here except in cases of demonic possession and locales such as the Skinwalker Ranch and other areas that seem to be haunted. And I always ask this question: is God and his creation, I call it the divine field, is the creation surrounded by hostile, powerful kingdoms? Is this physical life a training ground to help God defend his realm when we return? Is entropy a design by God? Or is entropy a design of a realm attempting to negate, to nullify God's presence? The war. At our average level of spiritual development, if we attune our souls to either good or evil higher spiritual forces, perhaps we have the option of working their wills in this physical realm with our physical bodies and minds, either for good or for evil or for selfish reasons. Close quote. Now, I received from a viewer in Norfolk, Nebraska today. Norfolk is 118 miles northwest of Omaha. And she writes, quote, "Dear Linda, I remember a snapshot of a dream I had the night of October 14th. not long ago. I was with a large group of people, and we were outside enjoying the beautiful night sky with the stars very clear and pronounced. But suddenly the sky changed, and instead of a typical night sky, a totally different scene was there. It wasn't dark anymore, and as far as you could see, there were objects floating above us, hundreds of spheres, cubes, and triangles. And I had the thought that I had always been right, that we were being totally deceived into thinking that our world is what it appears to be. Over my lifetime, I have had this sensing, as I have had glimpses of some things that I should not have seen. But yet, at the same time, something is taunting me by showing that I am not in control and giving me hints to egg me on. I really don't think that we will ever be able to understand our universe, and someone doesn't want us to understand. It seems at times we are someone else's players in a game. Thank you again for searching for the truth. Signed, Marcia Rengifo. And she gave me permission to use her real name in Norfolk, Nebraska. And my hope is that more and more of you in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, on the other side of the world, in Malaysia, in all of the countries, that more and more of you will feel that you can reach out to me, either in confidence, total confidence, or that you want to share with your name on the line what you have experienced, perceived, photographed, whatever it is, so that I can continue periodically to share some of the emails, social media, hard letters that I am receiving with extraordinary insights, I think, and that it gives me sort of a feeling, I guess, of camaraderie, that so many of you feel as I do, that we're on a planet that is concocted, and that we are now beginning to impatiently wait for a headline that should have been here centuries ago, that we're not alone in this universe. The complex forces have manipulated our planet, continue to this day, and that it is not fair for Homo sapiens sapien, the human family, to be denied the truth. Truth about wars in this universe and other dimensions. Truth about peace and love in this universe and other dimensions. And if there are conflicts, if there are battles between the light and the dark, the more we learn and are told the truth about it, the stronger we will all be. My granddaughter Hannah, so bright, so strong, so fearless, on her 5th birthday, being so reaching out to everything around her, wanting to interact with a mind that now carries a huge, huge vocabulary. I hope that she and other children like her are truly going to be evolutionary as we move into this century without, I hope, without anything bad happening, so that these children, who seem to be a kind of an evolved species, that they can grow and learn and be part of the space world, the Milky Way galaxy that we are clearly moving into, no matter who or what is behind the energy. It's happening. And Peggy, with that, I would love to learn what questions and comments our audience has tonight and to tell all of you it's great to be back with you. I wish I could have taken every one of you with me on that tour, that cruise, because it turned out it was sort of like a bonding when you're with people that resonate and you have profound discussions like we do on the Earthfiles YouTube broadcast. That's when it's really fun. And let's pretend that we go on a cruise every Wednesday night together with everybody around the world and keep helping me expand our cruise audience by having everybody you know subscribe to my Earthfiles YouTube channel. I would just love to see it by New Year's Day be up close to or at 200,000 if we can make it. And with your help, we can, because the more larger audience and this family that feels so increasingly close that we can put together, I think the stronger we will all be when whatever we are finally shown about we're not alone in this universe happens. You and I and so many others will be hopefully stronger and more prepared. So with that as a context and looking forward to more and more subscribers, Peggy, what kind of questions and comments do we have tonight?
Hi, Linda. First, I'd like to say thank you to some super chats out there tonight.
Oh.
So thank you, Odin, Christy, the Lovisher, and Carol Ann. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much.
I think this is a great question. It came from Truth Seeker tonight, and he wonders, when we finally get disclosure, Linda, will you retire?
No, are you kidding? Oh my God, no. There's nothing in me. If my parents were here, they would tell you. I have always thought that retirement was sort of strange and weird. I would like to keep going as far as I can go in finding facts and reporting to you, the world public, as much as I can learn about other intelligences, what is really going on behind military and government efforts to block our knowledge, and hoping that that will free up as we continue into the 21st century, not get stricter, that we don't go a totalitarian direction. And that if I and my work, that includes the books and the documentaries and the seems like thousands of radio shows and the Earthfiles YouTube broadcasts and all of the work that we are now doing at Prometheus Entertainment and Studios. I am doing Ancient Aliens. I'm going to be working with Giorgio on a new one this weekend. We're doing also The Unexplained. We're doing a series on the Skinwalker Ranch. We're doing the Oak Island. More and more is beginning to evolve. I've been having discussions with producers and other networks that want to continue to expand. And did you notice that just in the last 2 weeks, starting with the Los Angeles Times, a so-called mainstream media provider, they reported, I would say generally accurately, about what happened in Oregon to those 5 bulls that were found bloodlessly mutilated, no tracks, no signs of violence. And I reported about it back on August 2nd. And I then had called the sheriff's department. I had sent an email to the ranch, and I had been told that that they understood that from some of my work that I was putting out the hypothesis from law enforcement that extraterrestrial biological entities were the perpetrators, that this is what law enforcement told me, but they were going other investigation routes. 2 months later, the Los Angeles Times, NPR, the list goes on and on, have been reporting about those 5 bulls 2 months later, and what has come into the headlines. A deputy says, how could these 5 bulls have had the excisions that they had with no blood, no fluid, no signs of struggle, nothing in the ground, unless maybe aliens are the true answer. And now aliens are beginning to creep into the headlines now in October that no one would allow back on August 2nd when the news was at first coming out. So I hope that as we go forward, that the pressure of fact about animal mutilations as well will reach the whole planet. I am living proof. I sit before you as living proof from 1979 to 2019 October. Started in September 1979 on A Strange Harvest. It's now October 2019, 40 years. I have been by myself all over this planet. I have been by myself in at least 30 pastures, collecting tissue, soil, plants for scientists and medical people to investigate. I admit that a couple of times I looked up at the sky when it was becoming twilight, thinking, boy, I'm really vulnerable. But I'm still here. I've had lots of government threats. I'm still here. I have worked with a lot of whistleblowers who have also been threatened, and some of them are still here. So in this revolutionary time, ask yourself, if you were in my shoes, would you ever want to stop searching for our source, our origin, our relationship to the Milky Way galaxy, and to all of the intelligences that have appeared in human lives, not just this century, but for many centuries, even if they were disguised as somebody's God? I could never, ever voluntarily turn away. So, let's hope that I have a really good, strong 5 more years, maybe 10. I come from a genetic line that lives into their 90s, but I want to remain strong. So retirement is an alien word to me. Okay, what about another question?
One of our viewers was wondering about something that Spartan 1 had said.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned the Hyperboreans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you clarify who they are?
The Hyperboreans are supposed to be some kind of some people call them mythological, but in general, something like Nordics that would have been living in the South Pole. So it's like one of those intersections where historic, whether it's books or people passing stories, and they become identified as, like when people talk about the hollow earth, we don't have a hollow earth. There is no such thing as a hollow earth. There never has been. At the center of our planet is this huge iron crystal sphere. It is under such pressure that the shape of the atomic structure is different from normal iron on the surface of the Earth. And that sphere takes up 2/3 the diameter of our moon at the center of the Earth, surrounded by a liquid iron and some nickel. That the sphere turns one way, it's in this liquid that goes another way. That sets up the big dynamo that gives us our magnetic fields that are so protective of our planet. So it isn't hollow Earth in the center. But I have come and have talked to all of you about this in the past and talked with Spartan 1 and 2. It is going back to December 1999 when I had that long 7-hour meeting with the Defense Intelligence Agency analyst who was retiring after 23 years of work, focused on the conflict of these were his words, conflict of 3 extraterrestrial biological entity civilizations that have terraformed and harvested genetic material from this planet that is considered a laboratory for genetic experimentation and harvest. And that when he talked about the ancient Earth, he said, our government has proof, and he used the word proof, that 270 million years ago, these 3 extraterrestrial civilizations were competing on this planet in this solar system and were involved with Moon and Mars. And he said that the 3 competing civilizations would choose different parts of Earth to inhabit, all of them going beneath the crust of the Earth that we live on. And that what was underneath the land crust could be huge caverns, maybe from large gas bubbles that would heat and create caverns. And that they knew that a lot of the blonde types, because he divided those 3 groups into the tall blonde Nordics, the reptilian humanoids, and the third is a menagerie, tremendous menagerie of gray beings, some of which might be organic, independent intelligence, or a lot of it might be artificial intelligence. But those 3 groups competed on our Earth for the last 270 million years, and with the Nordics going down below the basins of the oceans and the seas. That's what he said. So if you go down to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and then you have technology that takes you through what we call the mucky muck, and you come out in something that they have already identified through technology that they would have, since they analyze planetary bodies as spherical geometry, and they are analyzing everything that is in this planet. So they find this area, the blondes go down below the basins of the oceans and the seas. The reptilians like it hot. They went to where there were deserts, Mesopotamia, he said. And the grays like to go inside of mountains. The Himalayas, he said, was one of their huge bases. And that they have other places where they can go into hollows, big hollows, that are right below the crust of the Earth. But the crust of the Earth, averaging 5 to 15 to 25 miles, wherever there is land, it's very thin. So they might have a big, let's say, gas bubble cavern. And the grays will go into 1, 2, or 100 on the Earth. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the big iron crystal core that rotates in the big iron nickel liquid, and all the magma that comes up and still is below some of these huge places right underneath the crust. So there's a lot of room in this huge 8,000 mile diameter planet, 25,000 miles around, for us on the surface and for us building underground all over the United States, the black world's underground, continuity of government, all of the things for the National Programming Office that have been done for at least 3 decades. That if there were some kind of a major catastrophe, like a nuclear explosion, the idea is that our own government will take a certain predetermined list of people underground. underground where the facilities, according to a physicist who talked to Edward Teller, and the physicist told me about his discussion with Edward Teller, the physicist, the one who ran the Star Wars program for President Ronald Reagan. The physicist told me face to face about 1984 or 5, I remember it was somewhere in there after I had done the HBO work. He said that Edward Teller approached him and said, I would very much like to work with you on the work that this physicist was doing. And he said, and I can guarantee you the money would be no object, that we are working with unlimited budgets. That was a phrase that shocked him, the physicist, and he told me about his shock. And the physicist started asking questions about the nature of the work. And Teller said, if you joined me, there is one agreement we would have to have. You would have to sign a non-disclosure that you couldn't tell your family anything except that you would have to be gone for 2 years. And the physicist said, 2 years from my family? Where would I be going? And Edward Teller said to him, I know you really love to play tennis. And where you would go, we have built beautiful professional tennis courts. And there is a blue sky with white puffy clouds and beautiful sunshine all the time. And the physicist said, where are you talking about? And Edward Teller said, it's deep underground. And the physicist said, I really wanted to work with Edward Teller. And unlimited money? Where did unlimited money come from? And he said, I just couldn't leave my family, so I didn't do it. But Linda, you need to know that he seemed to talk very seriously about a huge, huge underground installation or installations where you could play tennis under a blue sky with white puffy clouds and a beautiful sun. So what have we got underground? What does China have underground? What does Russia have underground around the planet? I would wager that there are underground installations not very far into the crust, and then there could be more deeper underground installations and deeper below those, so that if we knew the truth, the habitation of planet Earth could include maybe more than 3 extraterrestrial biological civilizations competing with each other, and that we are essentially in a planet that is like a multi-story apartment building. I would love to know that. And it doesn't scare me at all. We have been living on this planet for quite a while, and so have these other entities. And maybe there is something about us that they study or that they want, because there is no evidence of them right now having any interest at this date in taking us out, even though there have been, I would say, speculations that at this point in the 21st century that there might be some apocalyptic future because there needs to be a cull, C-U-L-L, a cull in the human population that is outstripping the resources during a time when we're going to have global warming. And global warming right now is the biggest threat to this planet. So maybe the non-humans who have cohabited on our Earth and throughout the solar system and have other home solar systems throughout the Milky Way galaxy, maybe they want us on the surface to get our act together and start cherishing this planet Earth and taking care of it better and cleaning up the oceans and the atmosphere, because that would serve them too. And that the whole anxiety about what the future could bring is a good anxiety, because we are going to lose increasing numbers of life forms on this planet if we don't do something about the increasing carbon dioxide releases of methane that are creating like a blanket around the earth and increasing the temperature. And the people who argue that the CO2 and methane aren't contributing to this warming, they're not looking at the physics of Earth. One of the greatest helpers for at least 25 years has been our oceans. The oceans have been able to absorb, like a heat sink, a lot of the Industrial Revolution's heat. But there are papers that have been coming out in 2019 from geophysicists who are studying what is happening between the oceans and the land. And these papers are extremely concerned, because where the oceans could be a big heat sink, they are now warmer and warmer and warmer, and less is being absorbed from the heat budget. Well, what happens when the water is warm, the air is warm, more water molecules rise from warm water into warm air? And when that warm air is pushed and has to go over mountains, torrential rains that are bringing these unprecedented floods like the one that just happened in Tokyo. They're going to be more and more and more. And then, when do the governments of the planet, the populations that are dependent upon the governments for infrastructure and generally for survival in catastrophes, when do the number of serious, violent storms, floods, seismic events, when does it all reach a point where there's no barter system anywhere that is capable of continuing to pay billions and eventually trillions of dollars just to deal with all of the evolving weather? We really are at some kind of they talk about it as a tipping point. We have to, as a whole planet of 7.6 billion that is supposed to reach 10 billion, I think, in another 15 or 20 years. If we were educated for real about everything that is in outer space, that has vested interests here, and how much we have been lied to, and we were told the truth, I think that a lot of you, like me, we wouldn't fall down. We wouldn't run to the exits screaming. We would say, thank you for giving us finally the respect of being conscious, sentient, humanoid beings that somebody else in this universe made, along with all the other preceding models. And we're smart enough to build cities and go to the moon. And now we're going to go to Mars. What could humans do if they could pair up their mind, their physical ability in the oxygen-rich atmosphere of this planet, with an actual education about the most important part of their entire mind, body, spirit, is the soul? And that we lived as a civilization that was singular in its understanding of what the human mind, body, spirit is, and how unique we might be, and that if we were educated and not kept dumb and blind, if we were told the truth instead of manipulating lies, if we had policies always of truth instead of policies of denial. The entire human family, in all of its colors, sexes, IQs, all of it, on a bell-shaped curve, I think it would have a chance to survive into the 22nd century with allies that the remote viewers and the government whistleblowers say we have allies, and that there are allies that are intelligent and they want to help us. And that is a headline I could get behind and try to work as hard as I could to try to get more information to all of you. I try every day. The problem we're always up against is that we are in a government, in a world of governments that are always trying to keep the public dumb and blind. It's not fair. To me, it's abusive. So, join me in my down with entropy, up with light philosophy, and that this group, we keep growing and growing. Just think what we could begin to do, just like Ancient Aliens has penetrated and is the #1 TV show now in India and Malaysia, and that we're having inroads, and that the most wonderful thing would be if all boats could rise at the same time with real facts and real truth. And that you are all watching Earthfiles, watching my Earthfiles broadcast at the hour that that headline breaks, whatever hour that is. I'll call Peggy and Eric and Brad and Ian in London and Mark Wood in Florida and say, let's go on the air. So let's hope for that. Let's hope that it happens within the next year or two, and that all of us can stay strong physically, mentally, evolving spiritually, and working hard to, I guess, it's almost like on the cruise, on this cruise that we just went on. You see people from a distance, whether it's in an airport or on a boat or in a hotel, and you recognize something and you think of a friend, and it's not until you do the handshake, it's not until you touch hand to hand and then have a discussion that you have some true insight into another human being who, like you, is sometimes afraid in the dark when they wake up, is haunted by an out-of-body experience that they had as a child, and they don't know who to tell or how or even why. And the thousands, perhaps millions, of people on our planet that could be our next door neighbor, who could have sat next to us in school, who another intelligence from someplace else in this universe came one night, one day, to a bedroom, to their car, to their backyard, to their pasture, using beams, neutralizing gravity, take humans through walls, take humans through ceilings, take humans through floors, take them in and out of cars, lift up 2,000-pound bulls in beams of light that ranchers have seen, and then the humans are returned. And for the most part, the vast majority, all they've got is they can't figure out what happened to an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 3 days or 5 days like Travis Walton. They know they have a conscious mind up to this point. Then they don't know what happened. And then memory picks up. It's technology. It's manipulating brains and bodies. And in all of this, that handshake, if all humans could just understand the truth about us, about humanity, it might help us to stand strong on our own 2 feet, on our own, well, our Earth for at least 2 million years. Clearly, if 3 extraterrestrial civilizations have been competing with each other on this planet for at least 270 million years, and our government has proof, but it's dangerous to know what it is. Homo erectus is only 2 million years old. So what we have to learn about the last 270 million years, it thrills me. I wish they'd put me in one of those big Suitland, Maryland archives and say, okay, here's the UFO ET section from the Atomic Energy Commission and the Navy going back to the early 40s or the 30s or the 20s. Linda, have at it. Read everything. Come out and report it all with the style that you do in your books and in your radio and your YouTube broadcast. Report it. That would be thrilling. No matter what is there, just to do a handshake with people in a government who finally ask us to do the truth, to know the facts, and live life on this planet differently than it has been lived for centuries. I feel hopeful, and that's what I want to leave you on tonight. In spite of it all, in spite of the chaos that is happening on our planet right now, I really feel hopeful that somehow out of the chaos, history has always shown us, out of real chaos often comes something that is like a birth to a new insight. And we are at that revolutionary point. And I just love all of you who are reaching out to me and to the truth, and that we can help each other. And on that note, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. And to all of you who are on the cruise and the incredible conversations that we had about this universe, we must keep our discussions going through social media and through email. And that, again, I say to any of you who are military or government and are whistleblowers and want to communicate with me in a confidential way, you can do so by FedEx or hard mail to start. For all of you who may be haunted by the question, if I was abducted, why and who? If you do drawings and send me your stories in email with attachments, I have seen thousands of illustrations of humanoids, craft, all sorts of things. So sometimes when you send me color, pencil, or crayon drawings, I can immediately go, I remember this, I remember this. And that will help you, and it will help me to expand our knowledge. So I look forward to hearing from you. And next week, next Wednesday, I'm going to have a fascinating discussion with somebody who worked in the U.S. Patent Office about this newly released information that a nuclear fission reactor has had a patent application. It has not been a patent granted. It has been a patent application that has been filed with the U.S. Patent Office. And I'm learning a lot of interesting information about something that, if it were true, If it were nuclear fusion, fission is where you explode an atomic bomb or a hydrogen bomb, and that's terrifically destructive. Fusion is like our sun. Fusion would give tremendous amount of energy to the Earth for a little bit of energy going in. And this patent application by this physicist who works for the Navy, his last name is Sais, S-A-I-S. His patent application says that the nuclear fusion device that he's applying the patent for would be between 0.3 to 2 meters in size. That's 6 feet or less. Wow. And it says it could be used in water, air, and space. Oh, let's hope. Let's hope that these are the kinds of new breakthroughs in science, even if they are old to the black world, even if they are old to extraterrestrial intelligences. They're new to you and me, and they give the possible future that we would all like. Endless energy that is not destroying our dear planet Earth. Thank you. See you next week.